welcome back to Lost in Roshar, the ultimate journey through the Stormlight Archive. I'm Christian Kremling.
I'm Jimmy Stormblessed. Today, we are diving into Words of Radiance, Chapter 7 and 8 on this reread full spoiler podcast. So beware, there are going to be spoilers. You do not want to be here around your first time. But the big question of the week, Christian, who are you taking to the Cosmere Ball?
Well, Jimmy, are you free? I mean, you put me on the spot here. I was meant to come to you first, but alas, you've swept me off my feet. I reckon we should we can organize some sort of dance that we enter into the Cosmere Ball with, and we just steal the show, and potentially a dance battle will ensue.
Like, what outfit are you rocking? Like, if you had to emulate one character's drip, what would it be?
In the whole Cosmere?
In the whole Cosmere, the ball is open.
I mean, I do need to like steal the show in this moment. And we also are we matching? All these questions, you're putting me on the spot here. All right, I think I'm going to go. No, I'm not going to do that. See, I'm terrible with these questions. How dare you throw this at me? Let's just go Bridge Boy Kaladin. Just give me some sandals and some shorts, and I'm good. Like, that's classic Aussie outfit. Just going to the beach. You can't be
cutting the rug in sandals. You got to
cutting the rug.
Well, you never heard that? You never heard of cutting the rug?
No, I have not heard of cutting the rug.
Bubba, we're cutting the rug down here. We're doing it big.
All right,
I would be an inquisitor, so I could drive spikes through my eyes instead of watch the cringe that would unfold on the dance floor.
Nah, dude. Yeah, I'm. I mean, can I blame you? Don't think so. Look,
I mean, I think some people might have no idea what we're talking about, so we should say the Sanderson update for the week is that there's going to be, I think, a Cosmere Ball of some sorts of Dragonsteel Nexus con. So this
was the thing, right? Like, this announcement came out. We're doing something new, and it's got all these Cosmere symbols and timelines and
so
dates.
Excited.
And I'm like, this is my jam. Like, I'm going to figure this out. And it's like Cosmere Ball. And then I looked at what people were saying, and they're like, yeah, is this a thing, Jimmy? Like, are there like ballroom events at cons? Is that, I've never been to a con.
I think they're usually in like a conference / ballroom. So maybe they're going to, so here's the thing. So at the Game of Thrones con, they after party. It was like an exclusive event afterwards, so after hours, and they had Hodor from the Game of Thrones TV show, and he actually DJ'd a rave.
Hell yeah.
I swear to God, this is a real thing. Yeah. So I'm wondering if it's going to be kind of a similar thing, like after the thing's over, you go to the mall or something. I mean,
is Sanderson gonna spin a few records?
If you're looking for love, look no further. That's all I'm saying.
I'm just what's. There's like a Seinfeld episode where I think it's George and Kramer end up going to a dance together, and there's this clip playing in my head of Kramer spinning into the dance floor, and I think that's what I kind of want to. If I'm going to the Cosmere Ball, it's like the type of entrance I'm going for. I think we just run in with a bridge, dude, and lay the bridge down, and that's our stage, and we just start busting a move.
Well, you know how break dancers throw down wood or a mat to dance on? That's the gimmick.
Yeah, that's our thing. It's all coming together.
This is the content you're here for, folks. I know. The theories, pretty solid. But the banter, an absolute slammer.
Yeah.
How are you doing, Christian? You doing all right? You good?
I'm good now, because I know we're going to do a flash mob at Dragonsteel this year. We said we're not going, but little do they know, Sanderson will be answering questions about Stormlight 8, and then we're just going to kick the door down. What do you say? Cut the carpet? What are we doing?
Yeah, we're cutting the rug.
Cutting the rug. Oh, cutting the rug.
Move on, man. Yeah, ooh. I mean, it's lost in Roshar, and we're lost in the dance, dirty dancing.
Guys, I come in here with the structure. I keep this ship sailing on course, and Jimmy comes in here with his inquisitive bloody spikes and throws me off. But no, man, things are good. We're recording on schedule again, a brief moment, and then you're off to live your life for 17 years, and we won't see Jimmy for a while, but that's okay. Are you excited about all these things coming up? in
I
your
am.
life?
I am traveling literally every single month for the rest of the year. In July specifically,
Wow,
every
really?
something going on every single weekend in July. I got a lot of stuff going on, so I will be absent for probably the next 3 episodes. But I will miss you all very much. I'm sure most of you will not miss me, especially after that intro. But it will continue on, and the journey will continue on. And I'm sure we'll have Jake or somebody come in and fill
Mhm.
in. And the thing I'm most curious about is like last episode, me and you
Yeah.
talked, which has been about a week and a half ago.
Yeah.
I said, man, the preview chapters, like they need to start coming out soon. And I said the next 2 or 3 weeks. Well, it's been almost 2 weeks. And not only do we not have any, we haven't even heard anything about the release schedule of this. So I'm wondering in the next 3 weeks while I'm gone, are we going to get those pre-release chapters? Like, do you think?
Um, so in my mind, I've got August in my head. July
You're
feels
thinking
too
August.
early.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm thinking August.
Hmm.
Potentially, I think also what has to come before those preview chapters is the Michael Whelan cover, because they need to,
Yeah.
because he usually puts up the audio as well onto YouTube, and they need a nice backdrop, and they need that
Hmm.
cover. They need that cover to release. So I think it's all about him. Once that cover's out, we'll be off to the
Yeah.
races.
It's got to be coming soon now. Obviously we talked about the UK cover and Dalinar wearing Nike Dunks on the cover. But where's
Yeah.
the Whalen? Where you at,
Yeah,
Whalen?
where are you, mate? And speaking of that, I did a cheeky little poll yesterday. I left it right to the last minute. We're recording a bit later than we usually do, and I wasn't sure whether to do a poll, but I squeezed one in yesterday about just under 24 hours ago, and I asked you guys what your favorite Michael Whelan cover was so far. So all the US covers are done by renowned fantasy artist Michael Whelan, and we're at 2,500 votes at the moment. Surely this will go up throughout the day. Did you vote on this one?
I did, yes, and I was very torn.
Mm.
I like all the covers. Let me just be first and
Yeah,
foremost here.
yeah,
I think Oathbringer, the scene that Oathbringer is showing me is like the best of all the scenes that I enjoy, and it just happens to be a really hype cover.
yeah.
But Rhythm of War, from just like art perspective, I like the
Yeah.
most. It's actually my favorite, even though I don't really care about a lot of the stuff that happened to Rhythm of War around this scene.
Yeah.
I think that cover is so, like, it stands out on the shelves in the bookstore. Like, even when I go in today and I go to the fantasy section, Sanderson's got a big section, Martin's got a big section, Tolkien, Sarah J. Maas, whatever it is. Out of all those covers, the Rhythm of War cover always sticks out 100% of the time. So for me, I voted for Rhythm of War, but I think Oathbringer is like neck and neck with it.
No, not really. Not really. So,
Well, no, I meant for me. I know.
for you.
I
Yeah,
was
for sure.
shocked that the Way of Kings is the number one.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
actually mind-boggling.
Right. Way of Kings 46%, followed by Words of Radiance at 24%, Rhythm of War at 22% of the votes, and Oathbringer at 9%. And I voted for Rhythm of War as well, man. Like I made it pretty clear last episode that was my favorite. I'm jealous that you get to see these at a bookstore. Like I don't see these covers in the wild. I never see them. I just see them on my screen. I just see this white section of Sanderson books, and they all, they look like a cool collection. Going to the Sanderson section here is like going to like a manga section anywhere else. You know how all the spines match up.
There's a lot of 13-year-old kids reading on the floor. Hello Kitty backpacks.
Yeah, just reading Tress as they do. No. I just mean like uniformity looks good, but I don't get to see these sick covers. To me, look, Rhythm of War, I feel like captures Shallan's essence so well. And check out like the Rhythm of War UK cover compared to that, and it's like not even close. Like,
yeah,
Shallan's just like holding a spear, being like, "Ooh." Like this is, like what is she doing? I don't even know what she's doing on the UK cover. But hey, I got to defend it as a person who only has access to those. And the Way of Kings winning, man, what's that about? Is it just so iconic that it's winning the vibe check?
We kind of talked about the cover, right? We talked about like who is it depicting, and some people say it has a little bit of everything, but none of it's quite right. Then I saw some people arguing that actually it is all perfectly right. Lady Patience says love them all, but Way of Kings is just so iconic, which it is. I mean, that is one of that's one of those covers when I was getting back into reading fantasy books that I already knew because I had seen it on articles and stuff like that. But I don't know. Maybe it's because it works the best as a background on a computer. Maybe that's why.
Potentially. Yeah.
How is Rhythm of War not higher though? I feel like maybe people just didn't read the poll and are just voting on the book they like the most. Because like Words of Radiance cover is okay. Like it's really good, like in the grand scheme. But like comparatively, I think it's maybe the weakest of the four, possibly.
I agree.
It came in at 24%, and I have to imagine that there's at least some people out there that just voted for it because they just love the book.
I remember seeing, I think you're right, but I remember seeing Oathbringer's cover because I saw all the covers right before it's weird. I think Oathbringer had just been announced when I started reading The Way of Kings or something along those lines. And I remember seeing the cover come out and I was like, what is that? Like I couldn't understand what she was doing. I was like, it looks like a dessert. Like it looks like caramel. Like she's doing something to that wall. It looks kind of tasty. But yeah. Now I see it, I'm like, this is so sick because we don't really get official art of like soul casting,
Yeah,
and that's a sick thing to see. Kaladin doing the superhero landing is one thing. I think Seth looks really good on the back cover of Words of Radiance. I will give it that, but I don't know, man. This alien landscape of Shadesmar just looks freaking awesome.
Awesome. And the cover of Oathbringer is absolutely ridiculously epic, right? Especially if you know what the context is like that. So that it was hard not to pick that, but I had to remove myself from like the events of it and just look at the covers, and just look at the art. So I don't know. Rhythm of War is definitely mine. I don't dislike any of them though. I think they're all great.
Yeah, agreed. But God, I can't wait to read those Oathbringer scenes again. I think Oathbringer is going to hit the hardest on a reread. I really do.
Yeah, it's interesting because I'm the most excited to read Words of Radiance, and actually I'm most excited to read Rhythm of War because I wasn't the biggest fan of it on the first read. So I think I'm going to get a lot more out of it this time. But Oathbringer, the one thing I know it's going to be heresy, but the one thing I'm not really looking forward to as much is the Dalinar flashbacks.
Blasphemer.
I know. I'm sure there's going to be a lot more to dig into there than I think there is.
Yeah.
But it's the same thing with like the Kaladin flashbacks. Like I wasn't super duper excited to read them. I had forgotten a lot of Kaladin's flashbacks, but I knew that we were going to get like little tidbits from it to talk about. And we did. And we actually got more questions than answers probably. So I'm sure the Dalinar flashbacks will hit. Now, to be clear, they're my favorite part of the series on my first reread. So it's very odd that I have this feeling of like almost trepidation trying to reread them, maybe partially because I'm afraid I won't like them as much, who knows,
but maybe,
but I'm more excited for the things that I forget the most about. And I feel like I retained a lot of Dalinar's story.
Yeah, there's going to be lots of cool character work with Dalinar, obviously, but there's also going to be really cool history to learn. And I think that's what we'll get the most out of, like visiting the Night Watcher. Oh man, that's going to be great to read again. I just remember Dalinar like using his steak knife to like leave dinner and kill someone and then come back and then go back to eat.
as one does.
I want to read that. That's an Abercrombie scene right there. It's the closest convergence of Sanderson and Abercrombie, my two loves combined, is like the Dalinar flashbacks. It's as close as we get. And I can't think of a first law moment that comes like close to Sanderson vibes. It's a one-way street. There's no way there's like a first law scene that took me back. I'm like, was there ever a victorious moment? Like, not really.
Not really.
Like what? Like not really. Without like some sort of sick undertone where I'm like, I can't do this.
It's just kind of how I look at life, so it resonates with me a little bit. But yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, I think I'm going to throw this question out to the listeners. Are there any people who are like me, who like are obsessed with Abercrombie and the First Law world as well as Stormlight? Because I feel like sometimes I feel like an outlier in the Cosmere fandom because I like. Generally, I like a bit of a darker toned story, and Stormlight is like a bit of a ray of hope for me. Are there people who also love this gritty, brutal, hilarious Abercrombie stuff, or am I? Hey,
Sanderson loves Before They Were Hanged, or Before They Are Hanged. I know that he had that book. Yeah, he had it in the background of his old videos back in the day. So he's a fan of First Law, from what I can understand. So, and they're good friends. So I think that you're okay. There has to be more people out there. I mean, me, I'm with you, obviously. So there has to be more of us out there.
Yeah, that interview with Daniel Green hosted between Sanderson and Abercrombie is a great watch. If you want to see them talk it out. But yeah, so we've done the poll, we've done the update. I mean, time to talk about these chappies, dude.
I do have one thing before we get in.
Yeah,
there was a comment on the last video, and it came from it's either Kaja or Kayla. I can't actually see right now. My eyes aren't very good. But the comment was about talking about the Parshendi basically being able to like sift through time, because Jasnah talked about that in the last chapters, and we were like, she got that wrong. So this comment says, Jasnah is right about the Parshendi singing. In the first Eshonai interlude, she uses the rhythm of peace to tell time. Eshonai pocketed the gemstone and checked the time. Her meeting with the rest of the five wasn't scheduled until the third movement of the rhythm of peace, and she had a good half a movement until then. So the idea that they're able to like maybe, I don't know if it's dilating time or what our exact context was, but I do remember us saying, Jasnah is giving too much credit to the singing. It can't interact with time. And it turns out that we were actually wrong, I think.
It's interesting because like I feel like there might be cases of it, but I don't think it's a ubiquitous thing.
Mm-hmm.
Not to dig my heels in. Like that's clearly like a
there's probably more to it that we don't know, and maybe Jasnah is also privy to information that we haven't been shared with yet. So like I don't know. I just thought that was interesting because at least there's evidence of time being interacted with.
Singing. Oh, for sure. Which is so cool. So maybe like there's certain songs they use to tell the time. It's like, also how long is the rhythm of peace, or do they have it on loop?
Yeah, good question.
Mine would be like, my meeting's at the the interlude of Master of Puppets. I've got 4 more
Mine
minutes.
Would be Like That by Kendrick Lamar. Wop, 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 wop.
That's how you know.
That's how I know. All right, let's read these. Let's read these Navani journal entries, shall we?
We shall.
All right. So the first one's going to come from chapter 7, and it says, I was unprepared for the grief my loss brought, like an unexpected rain breaking from a clear sky and crashing down upon me. Gavilar's death years ago was overwhelming, but this nearly crushed me. And then right into the next one. I seek not to use my grief as an excuse, but it is an explanation. People act strangely soon after encountering an unexpected loss. Though Jasnah had been away for some time, her loss was unexpected. I, like many, assumed her to be immortal, which obviously ties in very much into the chapter and what we see. And, in a first read, definitely kind of sells the idea that Jasnah has died in this previous Shallan chapter, as that's the one that you kind of get in chapter 8. Like chapter 7, you're wondering who she's talking about. And then in chapter 8, you find out it's Jasnah after you had just read that chapter, feeling like it has solidified maybe possibly that she had died. Funny fact about this little anecdotal thing. A guy I work with was like, man, I love the Way of Kings. I absolutely loved it. But Words of Radiance, I DNF'd that. He's like, I'd never finished that. It sucked. And I said, well, what are you talking about, dude? And he said, meh, I think he called her Jasnah. Like, Jasnah she's supposed to be dead and then she wasn't dead. I closed it. I gave up. I was like, wow, that's really? A crazy.
Whoa.
Yeah. Now, this is not someone that's reading fantasy books all the time. This is a guy, he reads a lot of tech books and he doesn't read a ton of fiction. But I thought it was interesting because me, I'm not a big fan of like fake out deaths or like bringing people back, which Sanderson is admittedly, a fan of, clearly.
Yeah.
This one doesn't bother me at all. In fact, it was one of the few times I think I felt happy. Like I was like, oh, thank God she's not dead, because I thought that Sanders had killed off his one like non-believer character, and I was a little disappointed because I like that viewpoint in the world as someone who himself is not a believer. So I really resonate with Jasnah, but on top of that, Jasnah's just kind of a badass character. So I was like, oh no, and then when she got brought back, I was like, oh, thank God. So it's strange how people react to those type of things, and I'm not saying that he's wrong for that, but I do think he's missing out on a lot of really good stuff.
Yeah. all our listeners will agree with that because we're all like obsessed with Stormlight here. But I agree with you. Like, there's a way to do it, right? Because like Gurm, for example, he'll kill a character that you're like, damn, I love that character. It sucks that they're gone, but there's like kind of like a thematic reason for it. They've failed, they've made a huge mistake, and they got what was coming to them, and you kind of take it. Whereas Jasnah, it's just like there's so much potential. There's so much to go. Like we just got to know her. It's just getting interesting. Like what would make it a worse book if she was just to be cut out of the story? So it's like, yeah, oh, thank God she's back. But yeah, these epigraphs get you going a little bit. You definitely start to question. You're like,
It sells it.
Yeah, like if mom's convinced, who am I to not buy this?
Now I'm going to say something stupid, and someone's going to make sure to not, like, I know the timelines don't add up, but what if? What if this is not talking about this moment?
Yeah, well, my brain also went to that when I first read it. I'm like, let's go, let's theorize.
Yes,
but then the next one kind of ruins that. Where it's like, yeah, clearly like Jasnah. Because if supposing we're reading the next paragraph, then it clearly is about her. But hey, I'm gonna throw this in now because I was gonna wait till the end, but because I actually did some research this week, I found out that if you dig hard enough, which is not really that much, a quick Google search, you find Sanderson has written this scene from Jasnah's perspective and has released it. Yeah. So you see what you can find this. I'll link it in our description this week if you want to, and I'll mention a few tidbits you learn from that. He's like, it's not fully canon. There's some few things we got to work out, but if you want to read it from Jasnah's perspective, here it is. It's very, very cool because I've always wondered how this looked from her perspective, and this post is from years ago. It's like from 9 years ago. I'm just discovering it now, unless I've seen it before and I've forgotten. But yeah, it's very cool, and I'll chuck in some knowledge that I've learned from reading that one as well.
Very cool.
We go through the chapter.
Love it.
Yeah. Well, I suppose we'll summarize this bad boy.
Yeah, chapter 7 called Open Flame. Shallan wakes up in a panicked state and rushes out of her cabin into the passageway. She sees 3 men holding torches with their backs to her, and one of them throws Jasnah's body to the deck, then stabs her through the heart. Yikes. She screams, recognizing one of the men as a new sailor, and returns to her cabin, locking the door. The men break down the door, but fail to see Shallan as she manages to draw Stormlight, then create an illusion of shadow to hide in, and another visible moving image for them to chase down on another part of the ship. She sends Pattern to spy, and he tells her the regular sailors are being killed on the main deck. She makes her way to Jasnah's cabin, surprised to not trip over her mentor's body in the dark. She finds Jasnah's chest and opens it to access her spheres and hears the sailors as they are being murdered. Shallan tells Pattern she wants to soulcast the bottom of the ship to sink it and use the confusion to help the sailors, and Pattern intercedes, giving her passage to Shadesmar. Pattern is there also appearing like a symbol head. He tells her to find the bead representing Wind's pleasure and persuades it to change and sing so it can possibly save some of the sailors that it serves. Shallan returns to the physical plane in the sinking ship and starts going under as she cannot find a way out. Then something grabs her, dragging her down.
This is how you start a book, man. This is how you start one of the best fantasy books.
Big stuff happening, massive events. Obviously, in the moment, you think Jasnah could possibly be dead, even though, she wasn't there to trip over. Shallan leveling up here in a major way.
Big time, doing lots of little tricks here. I wish we could see it. This is where I'm curious to see the adaptation. Like when she sends out like this flailing ghost that they chase, like the way it's described to you, the reader, you're not convinced it's really anything at all. But the fact that the ghost bloods start chasing it makes you think maybe this was kind of a convincing image of Shallan that she's sent out in front of her.
Yes.
Because I was imagining like a ghost almost, like just an impression of something. But maybe she did use quite a bit of skill there. And then the scene of her soulcasting the ship is very, very cool. And very interesting because like we go from this scene where she's able to soulcast a ship, and then the next scene is her like talking to the stick. It's like the infamous stick scene, and she can't get that stick to do anything. So I think there's some like a worthy conversation to be had of like why could she soulcast the ship, not like a stick? Is it because the ship has like a history to it? You can kind of bargain with it, but this stick is just a bloody stick.
Well, in breaths, right? There's different rules for breaths and things that you can animate and what they will do if they're animated. So I wonder if this also kind of applies to soul casting.
Yeah, I'd say there is a comparative point of like how much life is in a object in the cosmere. There's probably some sort of philosophical thing. I mean, there's definitely something that Sanderson's working out that we just don't know the rules of. I can imagine him having a grid of like types of objects and what it would take to soulcast and all that kind of stuff, which is neat. All right, so like a few things I was trying to like remind myself of, like who's here, what's going on. So we know it's the Ghost Bloods, and then through reading further, I don't know if you remember this person, but do you remember later we meet this lady named Tin who kind of shows Shallan the ropes of like espionage a little bit, and then we find out she's a Ghost Blood. Do you remember this character?
No, I do not remember this.
Right. So like soon Shallan's gonna I hope you keep reading, mate, on your weeks off, because this is a good stuff.
I will be. I will be.
So like Shallan eventually is gonna like wash up on the shore. She's gonna find a caravan who has Gaz on it, of all people. I think it's Gaz. Oh, I don't know if it's Gaz at that point. It might be Gaz, but like, and Tavlakov and all our friends from the Wave Kings, like that took Kaladin, and she kind of commandeers it, using her like Jasnah confidence that she's kind of learned. Anyway, they run into this chick named Tin, and then Tin shows her like the ropes of, like, kind of forms the character of Vale in Shallan's mind through showing her like undercover activities and stuff. And then we find out she's a Ghost Blood, and because she starts telling Shallan like, oh, I had this thing, I had to like sink this ship with like Jasnah on it, and then there was this apprentice, and then they realize, and Shallan actually kills her in that moment. It's the first time she summons her Shardblades. All these things are coming. So we will meet who's been sent to do this, and perhaps once we read those chapters, we'll get a greater sense of like why Jasnah, besides her research and her notoriety and all that stuff, and revenge for Incel Capsule, who we all miss.
Very much.
Yeah. How about Patton here, man? He's like, get your blade out.
Yeah,
he's very in the know.
Trying to get her to do certain things. I'm interested in this because are there any rules about like you have to wait so long until you explain to your shard bearer that they can take this weapon? You know what I mean? Like
the thing is, right? The thing is, nerdy Cosmere conversation here, and I think I've got this right. You can't summon your Spren as a Shardblade until the third ideal, I think. So she can't do that with Patton, but she can do it with Testament, her original one, which Patton knows about, which is crazy to me, because that is just like, she went through a lot with this first spread. And they're like, you get these little memories. Oh, a child playing with a pattern of light. It's like just like simple sentences like that. You get a little chill. Like it leaves you wondering like what was going on in her life. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna quickly check this out. I just started typing when can you summon your, and it auto completed tax return. It's like, no, I don't want to look at that. I want to look at
that's the fifth ideal.
Oh yeah. I gotta check this out. I'm not, because everything is coming up as 10 heartbeats. I'll have to read it, but it's a certain ideal. I don't think you can do it straight away. So yeah, she wouldn't be summoning Patton, but he's obviously aware of Testament, which is curious because you would think Like if there's this dead Spren that she could summon, that when she pops into Shadesmar, it would be standing there next to Patton or something, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
So how would she summon it? I don't know. These are the questions.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of thing that makes Shallan seem very, very unique in the grand scheme of a lot of unique people. This is kind of her thing that makes us wonder, among other things in her history. But this is probably one of the main sticking points.
Something to look into. I don't want to get too stuck on this.
I'm sure we're going to we'll get some comments, straighten us out.
Yeah,
on this
yeah, straighten us out on that one, guys. It's a little bit of a hole in memory. But yeah, so then she throws out the image. She's freaking out. Then there's no body, so you're immediately like, maybe she ain't dead. Maybe something happened. And I mean, you can kind of put it together, like Shallan pops into Shadesmar, you know.
Yeah, there's definitely some wiggle room there.
But then you're confused because, like, logically, or you'd assume that it hasn't been that long, right? So when Shallan ends up in Shadesmar, you'd think Jasnah would be there, you know, injured on the floor or something, but she's not.
Yeah,
which leaves it open. So I was always curious, like, how much did they damage Jasnah, and like what actually happened here? Like, what state was she left in Shadesmar? You know, was it a fake stab? Was it a real stab? Like, is she really hurt? How did she heal herself? Because she's not a healer necessarily, but like, you know, Stormlight can heal a lot of things. So I was paying close attention to like the brief glimpse we get of Jasnah. So it said, a body in a thin nightgown, eyes staring sightlessly, blood blossoming from the breast, Jasnah. And then the guy's like, be sure. And it says, the other one knelt and rammed a long, thin knife right into Jasnah's chest. Shallan heard it hit the wood of the floor beneath the body, which is just brutal. Like that.
Yeah, so at that point, I mean, thinking she's cooked is fair.
Yeah, it's pretty fair. And then when you read this, and I'll link you now in case you want to do a quick scroll through. When you read this perspective from Jasnah, it's like she's freaking out. She's like, holy crap, I just felt myself die. That was crazy. And then it goes into like Ivory, her Spren, had explained to her, like, unless you're getting hit in the head, in the brain as a Radiant, you're good. But Jasnah is like totally shook. She's like, oh my God, I felt myself die. And Ivory has kind of helped her come into Shadesmar. Sanderson also writes that it's her first time fully in Shadesmar, like fully like there. Remember, like in the prologue, she pops in and then she pops out. And he makes a distinction here, like they are fully in Shadesmar. You can't quickly come back to the world. We've got to find a way back. And thus begins the journey of Jasnah in Shadesmar. There's a couple of neat little details, like we also get her looking at the flames in Shadesmar and commenting like, these are the flames or the souls of the people, and the little ones were the sea life. You know, Shallan's like, are these like souls of fish? And Jasnah's like, yes, these are definitely that. So you get like a cool little like confirmation there that that's what's going on. And they talk about finding Honor's perpendicularity, which is like something we hear about a lot. And the only time I think we've seen it is when Dalinar has his "you'll not have my pain" moment, and he throws it out, and Ivory's like, we got to find Honor's perpendicularity. But whenever it's mentioned, everyone's like, I don't know where it might be today. Like it's kind of on the move. So I don't know we still don't really know what that is, even though her Spren seems to know.
Did we get that in book 5, you think?
Yeah. Yes, I do think so. And then what's a neat detail is, you know how Shallan, when she soul casts the Wind's Pleasure into water, but then she starts worrying about all the crew up there who are tied up, like how they're going to swim. Mm-hmm. In this scene with Jasnah that he's written, she soul casts their rope into smoke, so she undoes their hands. So that's how some of them live, which is cool detail. Not
canon though, technically.
Technically not canon, but
those sailors dead.
Well, except for Yalb. I'm like, I remember seeing Yalb again. And he rocks up
Mm-hmm.
at the start of Dawn Shard, like a brief little like, how you going, guys? Yalb's back. But he gets a weird reputation because like his last ship has disappeared and everyone thinks he's like part of a ghost ship or
Like
something.
cursed or haunted or something. Yeah.
Yeah, which is like classic fantasy vibe.
Yeah.
You know.
I actually love that stuff.
Yeah, me too. It's so good. So yeah, I suppose that like the only other thing is like the Shadesmar stuff. It's cool finally seeing Patton with his Patton head and his
Symbol head.
symbol head with his hands behind his back. Classic.
Mm-hmm.
And then like the soul casting itself is interesting. How she talks to the ship. Very cool. Like it like opens up a lot of lines of thought. Like, what object would I want to talk to in Shadesmar? Like, there's probably I want to talk to Gavilar's palace. That's who I want to talk to. They've seen some stuff. They've seen a lot of stuff
and probably heard quite a bit.
And what? What I will say, because I got really excited reading this Jasnah perspective from him, because she's thinking about her death in this moment, but it also kind of felt like she was thinking about something from her past. But I may, I don't. I may be reaching.
Well, let's hear it.
Okay. Okay. She darted her head from side to side, taking in everything but registering very little of it. Storms. She could sense that knife again, sliding into her flesh. She felt that same helplessness, the same panic, emotions which had accompanied the knife's fall. She remembered the darkness consuming her, her heart fading. The end. She closed her eyes and shivered, trying to banish the memories, yet the effort of trying to do so only seemed to solidify them. She knew that she would remember dying for as long as it took the darkness to claim her again. Which, now that I read it, feels like it's just about this moment. But at first I was like, oh, is this the childhood stuff? Is this happening? But I guess when she has this conversation, being like, this is my first time fully in Shadesmar, because they have this thing, he says, like, if you come into it a little bit and your body's still on the other side, you can like hop back to the real world. But once your whole entity or whatever is in here, you can't just go back. Which answers a lot of questions about her childhood, or like it like puts some constraints on theorizing. You know, like her first time popping in to Shadesmar was Gavilar's Feast, and the first time fully going in was when she quote unquote dies in Words of Radiance. So we have some sort of like marker points in Jasnah's like life and knowledge, which is neat. And the thing grabbing Shallan at the end, I believe, is the Sandthid, because the Sandthid kind of drops her off at the beginning of the next chapter at the shore, or she thinks it does or something. So I'm going to say it's the Sandthid that did that.
Yeah.
That's my headcanon. Was there anything else in that chapter, you reckon?
No, just a lot of stuff at the beginning of a book to make you wonder where in the world could this go from here. And it makes me sad we won't see Jasnah for a little bit.
Makes me depressed.
Yeah.
It makes me really sad because she's Jasnah. Need I say more?
Yeah. Always upsetting to see our girl go, but she'll be back. She'll be back, and one day we will get her per POVs and finally know what happened to her as a child. We're
gonna be so old.
I know. I'll be like, who?
Yeah. Was she? Yeah. I won't. The banter will go too long. We've got to focus. We need to focus on this.
I feel like we should move on to chapter 8, which has a great title. I love this title. Knives in the Back, Soldiers on the Field. Dalinar watches as High Prince Aladar's army, which has arrived to the plateau faster than his own, fights the Parshendi over a gem heart. Dalinar feels bitter and jaded as he no longer believes the plateau run represents the fulfillment of the Vengeance Pact. Kaladin and his guards cross a bridge to guard Dalinar as he joins Aladar on his command plateau adjacent to where the battle is being fought, while Adolin and General Khal lead Kholin forces to the fight. Is it
you know what? We got a comment saying, stop calling it Kholin. It's Kholin.
Kholin. Well, to me, it's Kholin.
I will never forget your Kholin joke. The early episodes, you're like, I'd talk about, I'm feeling a bit Dalinar Kholin or something. You said something like that. Anyway.
one of my many terrible jokes that I've done on this podcast. So, anyways, Dalinar joins Aladar and tells him that he has saved the other high prince from losing, but Aladar complains that he will earn less and that he's being punished for being successful. Dalinar threatens Aladar on the consequences of disobedience, but Aladar counters that Gavilar didn't use honor to unite the kingdom originally, which strikes a nerve. Aladar thinks the Parshendi are about to push, but Dalinar thinks otherwise and turns out to be correct about them getting ready to harvest the gemstone and withdraw, and they end up victorious. Dalinar noticed that the Parshendi Shardbearer watching from a distance, having never entered the battle, and states that this has never happened before. Aladar thanks Dalinar for his advice, but refuses to trust him regarding politics since he fears betrayal. Back in his bunker, he notes there are now 60 days left in the mysterious countdown and receives a letter announcing that an old friend of his would be coming soon to the Shattered Plains and might solve some of the problems that Dalinar is dealing with. So this old friend is Amaram, right?
Yeah.
Oof.
Oh, no. And then it cuts to Kaladin. It's a neat little thing. An old friend coming back.
Yeah, it matters the sequence of chapters. So I always say that about good fantasy books is that, the authors put a lot of intent into who we're seeing at what time. So Amaram on his way to the Shattered Plains, the countdown still ticks, and a Parshendi Shardbearer staring from the distance, who Dalinar refers to he. But we know Eshonai is a she.
Yeah.
So very interesting stuff.
Yeah.
It feels weird that we don't know Eshonai yet. To me in my head, I'm I feel like that happened way early on.
Right.
And that's not the case on this reread. I'm figuring out that, it's going to be a bit until we see Eshonai.
Not too long, thankfully.
Not terribly long.
In
but
these first interludes, she shows up. And you get it's a long interlude too. You get a lot of info. Yeah, so look, this after the Jasnah chapter, this is one might say straightforward, but an astute podcast host such as myself would never say such a thing, and can tell you there's a lot going on here. There's levels, right? There's a few little mini plots going on. It's Dalinar's diplomacy arc. We've got the mystery with Eshonai and the Parshendi growing again, and we've got the urgency of the countdown. For a 15 million page book, the sense of urgency is quite impressive.
Yes,
we got stuff to do. Things are happening. You
have this countdown looming behind the book, and then you look at how long it is, and you're like, countdown must be moving at a snail's pace, but it feels like it is pressing.
And I'm just going to jump straight to the tinfoil theories, because I read this and I'm like, this is it. This is
the one.
All right. The amount of times he says stuff like this, it's not a coincidence. All right. So look, he comes back. He's failed at diplomacy. He wishes he was better. And he goes, he's staring at the wall that born the strange glyphs. And it says, those had been sanded away, the scratches hidden, but the pale patch of stone whispered. 62 days. I mean,
we've been talking about a lot of rocks, a lot of stones on this podcast for over a year now.
The stones are whispering. Once again, I'm just saying, guys, add it to the amount of time Sanderson's the stones whispered, the stones said, the stones uttered. The stones
making them very active and personified.
Yes, very active. These stones can't stop gossiping and chatting, let me tell you. And I'm not saying the stone was literally hey, Dalinar, 62 days. I'm saying these little, the way he describes it is meant to just a little thing for your brain to download, or to be oh, cool foreshadowing later on. I'm not saying it's literal. I'm just saying it's a neat little touch.
We're saying something's coming.
Yeah. There's going to be a chapter where someone's just chatting to a stone, and I'll be the happiest fan ever.
I'll be insufferable.
Yeah, dude. Look, if anything, this podcast is advocated for. It's the whole stones hold memories and have a chat with you thing. So if it ever happens, we will be the worst winners ever about that.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah. You know what was cool? Another cool detail I noticed. Did you notice this bit about the Shardblades? how you can like lend a shard blade and like take it back.
Yeah, it's like a Rent-A-Center type deal. Like you can put it on layaway. Yeah, I thought that was interesting.
That's cool. It's like you can have my shard blade until like my 10 heartbeats start, and I can just like zoom back in my hand.
It's like sharing your Netflix password. You know?
It totally is like that. It is like that. I just imagine the fight scene potential. It's like,
oh yeah,
you throw your buddy a shard blade, you go off hand to hand. He's like, no, I need that, and you just like coalesces into your.
That'd be pretty sick.
That's just like begging for a fight scene application, I think. Another like. There's like just little moments from this chapter, really, like little moments that stood out to me. Another one is when, Aladar, this guy's using classic bridgemen, and we know that, Dalinar's bodyguards are now Bridge 4, and it says Dalinar did not miss the dark expressions on his bodyguard's face as they surveyed the dead. Like, the boys are out of the bridge runs, but they're constantly reminded of where they came from and what could have been.
Yes, and how things could easily slip away into that or worse.
Yeah, can you imagine the trauma of these bridge boys going out with Dalinar onto this battle? It's like they're probably thinking, how long until someone's asking me to run a bridge?
A whole lot of PTSD.
Yeah, a whole lot. And Dalinar's just like, he knows they feel bad, but like, do you realize the extent of this? Like to run back out there? Jeez, that would be very tough. Very, very tough. And then, Dalinar's trying to take the back seat. He's trying to let Adolin take the reins a little bit. A bit self-righteous, where he's like, from now on, Adolin would lead the battles. Dalinar would change the world. It's like,
yeah, you can have my old job. I'm on to new, better, greener pastures. Okay.
God has spoken to me. Okay, son.
Okay.
So, okay.
Gonna need you to wrap up all this mundane battling.
Yeah, like I'm dealing with the end of the world. Okay. So yeah, look. Also, Dalinar going a bit Blackthorn for a minute.
Yeah, you can see a little shred of something here, right?
Yeah, when he's like, you're gonna do as you're told, and the guy's like, what or what? And he goes, ask Yennev. All right, and go talk to old Yennev. And we learn that Yennev refused the unification of Alethkar, and Sadeas killed him. So under order of Gavilar. I mean, it was a duel, but still. Dalinar's just like, if you don't listen to me, I will get my son to duel you and kill you. So that doesn't work very well in this modern day of diplomacy and sophistication. But Dalinar's just like, look, I got to change. I got to stop being hot-headed and brutal. I got to, change my tactics. But yeah, he gains some respect by reading the battle a lot clearer and giving some good advice. And then we get a Whispering Stone. That's about it. That's about all I've got to add for good old chapter.
Yeah, pretty straightforward. Like you said, there's a couple things moving on the undercurrent, but it's very much, continuing Dalinar's arc, reminding us there's a countdown, and putting Adolin in a new position as well.
And you know what? If we want to go into the chapter title a little bit, Knives in the Back. I mean, Amaram arriving back could be, you could apply Knives in the Back to that. Knives in the Back. I'm just trying to think, like, Knives in the Back seems a bit, like, interesting. Soldiers in the field is very obvious, but, like, Knives in the Back is interesting to me.
Well, I think it's also just the fact that Aladar is worried about betrayal, right?
Okay.
Like, he's worried about being screwed over.
Yeah. I'll take that. That works for me. And I'm just taking a peek at the heralds that are shown on this chapter arc, but I think that might be Ezrian. I mean, again, there's always a loose connection to why they pick certain heralds for the chapter arcs, but I don't think it's going to lead to that much of an interesting chat. But yeah, hey, things are bubbling, things are building. I reckon we can throw in a Spanreed this week, man.
Yeah, I have one here. We actually had this one queued up last time, but this time, we ran out of time last time, so we'll get to it this time. It's all about Lirin becoming honor. This is from Slim Goaty, which is a phenomenal name.
Littlefinger?
Possibly. Hi, Jimmy and Christian. I had a small point I wanted to add to the Lirin becoming honor theory. You mean fact? That I think gives it even more credibility. It is well known that shards have some amount of foresight, though it is not always clear on when things might happen. For example, I believe when we have confirmation that Honor knew he was going to die well before he did, as did Preservation and Mistborn. Knowing this and that the Stormfather is a remnant of Honor, I think the following might be possible. After Honor was shattered, everything he knew was not totally lost, and some impression of his knowledge or memory still remained with the Stormfather. Perhaps, like Syl, the Stormfather knows things but is not sure why or how he knows them. If this is true, he may be calling Kaladin son of Tanavas out of instinct, because Honor, before he died, saw in the future that Lirin would take up the shard. Thus, the Stormfather does not know that Lirin will take up Honor. Otherwise, he probably would have said something. But the echoes and impressions of Honor that are left on him cause him to say things even he might not understand. This would be extremely cheeky way of Sanderson to have hinted at a huge reveal since the first book, and would have been very much in line with his track record for hiding big reveals in plain sight. The prologue of the first Mistborn reveals that we'll say a character. I don't want to spoil Mistborn for people who haven't read it. Takes up a shard, if I recall. Thanks for the podcast, gents. Thoroughly enjoyed listening on my morning and afternoon commutes. Thanks, Slim Goaty. Well, thank you, Slim Goaty, for this. I gotta say, I like what you're cooking with here.
It's a neat little theory there. The only question I have after hearing this cool theory is like, let's say you're the Stormfather and you're like, man, this guy feels like a bit of a son of Tanavast. I'm getting a bit of a son of Tanavast vibe. Don't know why. You'd think you'd maybe from that point investigate a little. And maybe he has and we just haven't seen it.
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely possible that we just haven't seen that. But I don't think, obviously giving a little bit of foresight about who or what, has happened in the future.
That's very cool. That's very cool.
I think that's well within the realm of reason in Stormlight. And I think that Lirin is Honor. I'm never letting it go.
Somewhat like we get a lot of Lirin support.
But we also get comments say, a lot of people do not like Lirin.
Someone was like, there is no way in hell this guy is becoming Honor. You got to stop, guys. They're
also,
trying to rein us
in. Honor would never steal from their dead lord's treasury, and I'm thinking in my head, I don't know. There's some rich people who wouldn't mind taking their stuff once they're dead. I'm just saying. I don't know.
Look, I think it's, guys, we're 4 years into the cycle. Give us a break. What else are we going to talk about?
That's right.
Honor.
We got 10 years of dead air coming up. We got to really dig deep.
Oh man,
Luke 5 better have a lot of theorizing for it. Let's jump into another Spanreed here for one of the listeners. This is from Benji. And it said, a thought on your spirits and stones theory. Hi, guys. Love the podcast. That seems to be a common theme in these. I've been a listener since episode 1. I thought the theory you guys had on there being spirits and stones, how topical, was super interesting. I've been doing a reread. Noticed that in Oathbringer, when the Thunderclast are summoned, they are awakened out of stone. This is something me and Christian have talked about before. I was thinking that it was possible that Thunderclasts are basically reawakened spirits from the stone. This could also tie into Jimmy's thoughts on bringing back Gavilar. If we go with my idea, Gavilar could be summoned as a Thunderclast from his own soulcast body, but with his own shape instead of the shape of a Thunderclast. Maybe this would give him some amount of personality back, kind of like the Lifeless in Warbreaker. I'm not sure. I buy my own theory, but would love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for the great show. Best, Benji. P.S. You guys should call your listeners the listeners like the Parshendi, which I think we will do that. That's great advice, Benji. And yes, I mean, this really does tie into a lot of the stuff we've been talking about. Obviously, stones and Kremlings and all this other stuff. But we also reread Warbreaker, and we mentioned the possibility that we're going to see, somebody be brought back, much like Lifeless and Warbreaker, and Gavilar being the number one candidate in my mind. I like this. I think Thunderclasts are an obvious sign that something's going on with stones. I don't think, if you can't soul cast a stick, how are you going to pull a Thunderclast out of a stone? I'm just saying. So
yeah. What's interesting to me, look, the soul cast, the people who have died and been soul cast into statues just feel like they're waiting to come back. It's like they're in the waiting bay for a cool little scene. Yes. But then, like, we read a few weeks ago, we read one of Dalinar's visions, and we see like he's with these guys who are looking for like corrupted spren in the water, and the corrupted spren zip past, and then it seems like it awakens the Thunderclast. So does it like, like how does it do that is basically the question I have. Is there like a gem heart in a Thunderclast already that the spren goes in and it's like, I'm in control now, like a bit like Attack on Titan vibes? Or is it just like, is it more akin to Awakening from Warbreaker, where you can just like, create a straw person and off they go, maybe, and that feels like a more like sound comparison point than a corrupted gem heart or something. It feels like they're just like stacking a few rocks together and just awakening it. But I mean, Thunderclast seem to be a very sophisticated awakening, if you want to put it that way. Like there needs to be a lot going into that. It needs to have a very clear idea of what its goal is. It's a very large object. But like the stones in Roshar seem to have a bit more significance than, Vash's little straw guy getting some
Agreed.
keys. So, that's, it's one of those series you're like, this is a good little addition to the I don't know, the evidence pile or the question pile for this thing.
Yeah, we don't have many answers, but we have certainly a lot of things we like answers to. So book 5, hopefully we'll kind of clarify some of this stuff, but I'm glad that people are picking up on, getting stoned. It's an important thing. It's what we refer to it as when people take the stone pill. They go down the stone rabbit hole, and, at the end of the day, we're all just stoners.
Is that what we're going to call the Dawn Singers? The Dawn Singers on Roshar? They were just the stoners.
I like it.
But hey, like we should have been calling the listeners for ages.
Well, we can wreck on it.
It's a huge oversight.
Yeah, we'll send the editing team back on it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, the editing team. Yeah, just me. Yeah. Oh, it kills me. Like there's like a good, I don't know how many, but there's a good chunk of early episodes without timestamps, and every now and then I'm like, should I go back? Come on, guys, can someone else do it? I'm just gonna someone else just do the
help us out here.
First 10 eps or so, there's no timestamps, but anyway, these things can not the biggest problem in the world. But anyway, guys, as always, thank you for accompanying us on this episode of Lost in Roshar. Remember, the most important chapter a man can read is the next one. We'll see you next time as we jump into chapters 9 and 10 of Words of Radiance.
If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, be sure to leave us a review on whichever platform you listen on. If you have any questions or theories, please Spanreed us at lostandroshar@gmail.com. We'll see you next time on Lost in Roshar. And remember, everybody, please, for the love of all that is good, keep that safe hand covered.